topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Connected Table Live. We're your hosts, Melanie Young and David Ransom, your insatiably curious culinary couple. We love bringing you the stories of the amazing people we meet, greet, and eat with around the world and drink. And we are broadcasting from New York, sort of virtually, from what was one of our hangouts back at the day, Tribeca Grill, in the beautiful neighborhood of Tribeca. We miss New York right now, right?
We do, kind of.
Yeah, we do. We miss foliage, fall foliage. Fall foliage would be nice. We're excited. Our guest today he's been a guest on the show before in 2016, but life has changed so much, and he has so much more to say today. And he's back because he's a dear friend, and we're excited to have him. We're talking about one of the greatest restaurateurs of all times, the G.O.A.T, Drew Nieporent. He conceived a slew of hit dining concepts under his Myriad Restaurant Group. Let's talk about Nobu, Tribeca Grill, Rubicon, Montrachet, Corton, Bâtard, Daily Burger, and many more. And he has come out with a really fantastic, I've read it twice, memoir called I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult, Stories from the Restaurant Trenches. Reading this, I felt like I was there because so much of what Drew talks about in this book is what I lived, because it was my heyday in New York as well, working on major programs, often with Drew, like New York Restaurant Week, When Does a Hope Family Relief Fund, numerous fundraisers, which he was always graciously donating to and being there. I think we passed paths a million times, CCAP, you name it. And now he's with us today. Drew Nieporent, welcome, and a big hug from us.
Thank you very much, Mel. Thank you, David.
Well, it's great to see you and looking good. I must say, you look good. This phase of your life is becoming to you, Drew.
Well, I just lost 52 pounds on Zepbound.
Yeah.
But it really is my diet. I haven't had a slice of bread in 6 months, or rice, potatoes, pizza, Chinese food, po' boys, gumbo.
That's tough in New
I'm
York.
eating well. I'm just not eating any starch, so it's going all right.
Well, you look great. Curious, after all these years in the business, you decide to write your memoir now. Again, I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult. Let's talk about why now and why this title and how you came up to work with this.
Well, I've had a long and very storied career. Not everyone has the ability to open a slew of restaurants. I opened 40 in about 40 years, maybe even a few others that don't even make the cut. But now you do have a couple of restaurant groups and individual chefs who are opening at the speed of lightning. But I look back on my career and the longevity of the career and the quality of the restaurants, and it's pretty extraordinary. And not everybody is Robert De Niro's partner for 35 years. Not everyone can claim to create something as robust and successful as Nobu, which is now sports 57 locations around the world. So I put pen to paper, and I hope I wrote an entertaining memoir. It wasn't really an aspiration of mine to do a book. I actually see my career, my life, a little cinematically. So I really would love to have a movie, but saying that is harder to enact than one realizes, even when Robert De Niro is your partner. So anyway, the book I started writing about a year and a half ago with Jamie Feldmar, who's a terrific person. She had written the Don Angie cookbook, and she had also written Naomi Pomeroy's cookbook. The Portland chef who unfortunately passed away.
Mhm.
But I didn't know Jamie at all. Somebody else was supposed to do the book, and they decided that they couldn't do it. So when names were being proposed to me, I didn't know. I knew some, but I didn't know a number of them. And then I met Jamie, and there was immediate chemistry. I kind of liked her boldness, her youth. And just a side note, when she sent me the first few pages of what she had written, there was a curse on every page, maybe more than one curse. So I called her up. I said, Jamie, I don't curse like that. She goes, yeah, you do. I said, no, I don't. I don't curse like that. She said, yeah, you do. I said, well, the when you say a curse word, it has more meaning than on the written page. So clean up some of the curses. She sent me back a copy with about 80% missing, and immediately I found my voice. I heard my voice,
right?
And she wrote a tremendous book.
Your voice really comes through, I have to say. I felt like I called you after I read it the first time or the second time, and I said, this is an amazing book. It's your voice.
Yeah.
And it's quite remarkable.
Yeah,
and you're a New Yorker. You don't have a New York accent, but you're a born and bred New Yorker, which David is too. You grew up in like the wonderful affordable housing part of New York that we all wish we could live in. On the east side, right? I know exactly where it is. I can see it.
Oh yeah,
Peter Cooper Stuyvesant Town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like we all wanted to live there.
Those big brick buildings with the green windows.
Yeah, you never leave. You never leave.
Well, honestly, I looked upon that kind of like a prison cell, but because there were 8 apartments on every floor and they were all the same, but that was actually fantastic to grow up at Peter Cooper. There were playgrounds. I had built-in friends. I walked to every school, my grade school, junior high school, and Stuyvesant High School. So the location was fantastic. And
it's a great place.
Yeah, I love growing up there. Yeah, I love growing up there.
So I loved hearing you and your older brother Tracy used to talk about your mom Sybil. She's an actress, very successful actress, and your dad worked for the state liquor authority. Kind of interesting combo.
Right.
It made you guys went out a lot. How did that experience?
Here's basically what happened. I mean, my mother was a very successful actress as a child on radio before television even existed, and very theatrical and really pretty. I mean, my mother was gorgeous. My father was 14 years her senior. He married at 37. And he worked with the state liquor authority, which licenses New York restaurants. And this is the 60s. And the people opening restaurants in New York were right off the boat. They were the immigrants. And these restaurants were all very authentic, and the food was like unbelievable. And my father had a way, I always talk about how he took the application from the bottom of the pile, put it on the top of the pile, expedited the process. They were forever indebted to him, and they would invite him to bring his family to have dinner at their establishments. So I got exposed to like the greatest food, God's green earth, in the 60s. And I took to it. I was exposed. I loved it. I wanted to be a chef. And that was my career path. I didn't have to think twice about it. And I studied about food. I watched The Galloping Gourmet and Julia Child and read cookbooks and cooked at home. And that's what I was going to do. But I wanted to become a chef. Then what happened basically is one day my mother said, I was talking to Willie Weisberg's mother, and she said, there's a hotel school at Cornell. And I'm like, Mom, Cornell's an Ivy League school. I'm number 500 in a class of 700 at Stuyvesant. I ain't getting into Cornell. And she goes, well, let's apply, blah, blah, blah. And I got in. I mean, it's an amazing story. I got into Cornell School of Hotel Administration, 1973-4. And it was the best experience because the student body was made up of students from everywhere, from Europe and Asia and South America, and of course, some were from the United States. I mean, if I had gone to a state university, which was my destiny, I would have been going to school with everyone from New York State. How boring is that? Instead, I'm like meeting people from the Bahamas and Georgia, Greece. And I mean, so the first day at Cornell was just an experience, the first day. And, that was my destiny. It really was. But guess what? It wasn't a hotel school like in Europe, like Lausanne. So my first cooking class, and I talk about this in the book, they had a culinarian teach cooking, but he didn't teach you how to cook. He teach you how to open a can and heat it up, put it in a bowl, and that was that. So I was very upset, very disappointed. And one day, just walking through the corridors of Cornell, the hotel school, I saw a notice looking for 6 students experienced in Russian service to sail to the following ports: Leningrad, Oslo, Dublin, Copenhagen, Stockholm. And I'm like looking at this, I'm like, I never worked as a waiter ever. But I called the guy up, Uwe Christensen, a German student. Do you have experience? Oh, yeah. Got a lot of experience. And boarded the MS Vistafjord in June of 1974. And the first night, there's 60 waiters, and I'm wearing a light blue shirt, which is not what a waiter wears. Waiter wears a white shirt. So I was outed by about 59 other waiters, also carrying a tray with 2 hands when they're carrying the tray above their head.
On their shoulder, yeah.
Sort of, so they knew I was an imposter. But it's kind of like learning how to ride a bike. You do it more than once and you learn. And that's what happened with me.
That's a great story.
Well, you've worked in that end of things, so you know what you're talking about.
I know how to balance a tray on my shoulder.
Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Right?
The little captain's jacket and all that stuff.
But you also had another quality. You also had another quality that I think paved your destiny. You write in the book that you were the kid who knew everybody. Like you got to know everybody, and I was that kid too. I don't know. Were you that kid? I was that kid. I knew everybody by name when I got to my new class every year. And that's a gift. And it's a gift to carry throughout your entire life.
Yeah. I'm not certain if it was my mother or my father who led me in that direction. But my mother was kind of Miss Congeniality. She was very friendly and made friends very easily. And, for me, it's an education every time you meet somebody and get to know somebody. Now later in life, it's fantastic how many people, well, first of all, if you're in the restaurant business, people find you. So people from early in your life find you. And then when you write a book, obviously, if the book's any good anyway, people find you. But it was always really like Melanie, you've always, you've had such a great personality. So meeting people for you is easy. You're outgoing and energetic. And I'm sure David, similarly, you guys are like that. But with me, it was like I was a bit of a politician, I'll be honest. But I didn't run for any office, but it was like I was a bit of a politician.
You kind of have to be one in the restaurant business, though, don't you?
Drew, David's nickname, his friends would call him the maitre d' for life.
Yeah.
That's what people call him. Because David knows how to make people at ease. He has that ability, which is also important in hospitality.
My friends in the restaurant business called me the maitre d' of life.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
But, whenever I'd see you, you would always, as I wrote on social media, you're the guy, and, New York is famous for, hi, how are you? I got to go to the next person behind you, right? There's that hi, how you, and you move on. And a lot of people do that. I may have done that actually in my life. But you always had the ability to look someone in the eye and greet them by name. And make them feel like they were somebody before you moved to the next person, which is how life is in New York, right?
Yeah, I think, obviously in the restaurant industry, there's a lot of talk about hospitality.
Yeah.
But it has to be sincere, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is it's kind of a balance between familiarity and not being so familiar, like letting people have their anonymity if that's what they want. Some people just want to be served and left alone, and you got to be able to read that. But some people want the personal touch. And obviously, if you can remember somebody's name, like the second time they come to your establishment and you greet them by name, there's a great story. When I was working at 24 Fifth Avenue, it was called. It was a restaurant on 9th Street and Fifth Avenue. I was just the manager, but James Beard lived around the corner on 12th Street and 6th Avenue. And, actually between 6th and 7th. But so he came in one night, and he was at the end of his life. He was old. And he ordered a Manhattan neat. And I really didn't understand what neat meant. So I looked it up and, figured it out. And then, so the next time he comes in, when he sits down, I go to the table and I go, may I bring you a Manhattan neat? And he did like this, like a stunned look towards me. It was like a moment of, wow. Yeah. That's cool. Because he really, I took him by surprise. And that was James Beard. I mean, that was pretty impressive. The only other time, little things like Craig Claiborne, who was of that generation as well, New York Times columnist, said when he went to a restaurant, he knew he would get good service if when he stirred his drink and took the swizzle stick out, that somebody removed the swizzle stick. So I remember that also. And I agree with him. I mean, because it's an attention to detail. It's a little thing. It's like I tidy my table every time I go out for dinner. Like I move, glasses I don't want on the table to the end of the table, and then. But you're in this generation of they have to ask, do you want us to remove that? Well, kind of. It's right. It's going to fall off the table if you don't remove it. But
that's
so
funny.
Those are the little things I think that stick with you.
Yeah. I always put the crumbs from the bread in a little pile on the table and wait for them to be picked up.
That's our test.
That's my test.
Well, he does all the time. He puts them at the table, then takes a picture because he has a friend somewhere who they have a joke about it. But it's that little detail, like, are you going to crumb my table? Because he doesn't like crumbs on the table.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Talk about the attention to detail.
I've thought about bread that doesn't leave crumbs. Because like nowadays, most restaurants don't have tablecloths.
Right.
So when you break into the bread, or you break it in half, it leaves so much debris on the table. So I can relate, David. I can relate to that.
Yeah. It's my little test. The other is I always like to move the flowers and the salt and pepper to the other edge of the table from the middle of the table.
Yeah.
Because
that
gives more room for dishes.
Yeah. Well, are either of you lefties? Because
yes, I am.
Okay. So I noticed, I think it was Gail Green, who, they would mark her with the fork on the left and the knife on the right, like that's proper. And she would always switch it.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was her. I'm pretty sure. And then the waiters never got the memo. I mean, they'd switch it. And so the next time they still do it the way they wanted to do it. So, I think you have to pick up on the cues of the customer.
Yeah.
Well, I think you hit a point on that, and you talk about that in the book, because it's not only cues in the customers, but like in terms of, the biggest challenges of the restaurant is obviously profitability, if there's any, and how to cut corners, but do it in a way that it doesn't look like you're cutting corners in a bad way. You talk about that with like Nobu was a good example, which is you talk about it's one of the highest grossing restaurants, but you did things that saved money as well while you had this amazing quality.
Nobu was, I gave the welcome conference. I'm sure you've been to the welcome conference. Will Guidara's terrific welcome conference. He does a great job. And he asked me to speak. And it was really running late, and I was the last speaker. And I was huge also. I'd just been fitted with a heart monitor. And he wanted me to speak about in the moment. And I had a whole speech, which I just put aside. And I talked about a little bit about the heart monitor, which was not very topical to a restaurant savvy crowd. But at the very end, I said, now I'm going to tell you how to make money in the restaurant business. Nobu, no tablecloths, Nobu, no bread and butter. Nobu, no silverware, chopsticks. You just saved $150,000. Okay. Now, Nobu Downtown will do how did I say this? I think I said 500 covers. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobu Downtown, I got to get the numbers right. Nobu Downtown will do 500 covers tonight at $100 per person. Nobu Uptown will do 500 covers tonight at $100 per person. That's $50,000 in both places. That's $100,000 a day. That's the way you make money in the restaurant business. And I walked off the stage, and I think the program ended on it wasn't an hour late, which I like it when the trains run on time. But anyway, so Nobu, look, I'm reading Fireproof right now, Curtis Duffy's book. Have you read that?
No.
He's the chef from Chicago. He used to work for Alinea and Charlie Trotter. And I mean, like my book, I mean, stuff happens, but his book is father killed his mother and then killed himself. I mean, it's like, so, I mean, that's heavy. But in his book, he doesn't spare any expenses. The chairs are $1,000. The paper that they're going to print the menu on, and this is a couple of years ago, was like a $1 a piece, which, but they reprint every day. So the paper is $1 given away. And I'm reading this book and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it like that. That's not me. And like I had a party here. I had a book party here. Yeah. And Nobu brought these wooden boxes. They're very attractive with the sushi. And I'm doing another party. So I called the girl's catering person, Ann Yamamoto. I said, I'm going to need this much sushi. Yeah, she says, well, I'm going to put them either in the wooden boxes or in these black lacquer containers. I said, well, which is cheaper? She says, well, the wooden boxes that we sent you last time are $11 a piece. I said, and how much are the lacquer boxes? She says, no, it's like $1, $2. I said, give me the lacquer. Okay. In the kitchen at Tribeca Grill, I think there were 12 of the wooden boxes from the last party that were just sitting there. I sent them back to Nobu yesterday. Saved $120.
There you go.
You have to be that way.
That's the way.
I think a lot of people don't realize, if they're not in the business, just how much money goes into creating the restaurant experience, that it's behind the scenes that they'll never know about.
Yeah.
But guess what, David? It's very easy to spend money.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
It's very easy to spend money. I mean, I'll tell you just a quick aside. This is not in the book, but Paul Lee Brandt, who was my chef at Corton, where we got 2 Michelin stars right out of the gate, like a little New Orleans restaurant yesterday or the day before. So anyway, so I'm attending the meeting, because we always have staff meetings right before we open. And a couple of days earlier, I had spoken to him. I said, did you read the article in the New York Times? Lobster is at an all-time low. You can buy lobster for nothing. He goes, oh, thank you for letting me know. So now we have the meeting. And it's like, tonight, the special is lobster. Blue lobsters. And I'm like, what the hell is a blue lobster? They're from Nova Scotia. The meat is sweeter than the Maine lobsters. And he proceeds to talk about this special. So the second the meeting's over, I'm calling my purchasing guy at Tribeca. Like, how much do these goddamn blue lobsters cost? Oh, no, he didn't have an accent. They're $17 a pound. What? Like lobsters, like $5.95. Blue lobsters, where the meat is. And anyway, this was the ongoing torture.
Yeah.
Paul Lee Brandt put me through. This is the torture.
Well, you talk about that blue lobster book, and I had to laugh.
I do talk about
because,
it.
Because Paul, I remember Paul from Atlas, and I remember he and Nina Griscom had a big flirtation at a James Beard auction and disappeared for a while. We all winked. And then he ended up at your place. I have a fun. So we go there.
We had a great meal there. By
My
the way.
friend Patrice Tanaka said, "I want to take you anywhere you want to go," and I picked that, the restaurant. And Paul was there, and some of his dishes were so out there. Like one had a little guy sitting on the edge of the bowl fishing into the bowl or something.
Right.
He was incredibly creative, but difficult. I don't know where he is now, but
no, it's an amazing thing. Because my mother, after being an actress as a young person, she became a theatrical agent, and then she became a casting director. Of course, a casting director finds jobs for the actors, but specific to what they're asked to cast. So my mother cast these commercials. And, when you're a kid, you're changing the channel with the changer. That was a big thing with us. My mother's like, I want to see Dave Balaban or, Paul Lee, or she had cast these actors in the commercials. Okay, casting. So when I choose a chef for a restaurant, it's the most important thing you do. And you don't do it willy-nilly. And you choose somebody and you don't choose somebody else. So I used to make these lists, like 5, 6 names. And whoever I chose, I'd look at the list maybe a year later. And the other 5 people did really well, the ones I didn't choose. But the one I chose, we always got 3 stars, always. So Paul Liebrand, we got 3 stars. Corton, he got hosed by Frank Bruni of the New York Times. He opened a restaurant called G.O.A.T. that was supposed to get 3 stars. It didn't. And yet we come in, we open the restaurant, we get 3 stars, and he still had to hose me. He still had to, prove to himself that it was him that got the 3 stars, not us, or it wasn't a team. The word team now is on every single restaurant's lips. The team, the kitchen, the team. And yet he didn't somehow conform to the team. So he had to go to Brooklyn, not say anything to me, but I knew. A cook came out of the kitchen and said, "When are we going to Brooklyn?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Paul says, "We're going to Brooklyn." So he hid it from me. I went and I researched the place and the hotel in Williamsburg and all this nonsense. And then when push came to shove, I was like, I'm not going to compete with myself. He's going to open a place serving hamburgers and a less expensive fare. I'm running a restaurant with $115 prefix. So, when we finally sit down, he says, "Yeah, no, I'm just letting you know, I'm going to keep both." And I said, "Well, that's very nice, Paul, but I'm not going to compete with myself. So you go have a nice time in Brooklyn." And that was that. I can stand on my own 2 legs. I did it with David Boulay when I was 29 years old, and he was the best. There's no question.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, he was phenomenal.
He was good.
A total
he was a talent.
pain in the butt and difficult in more ways than you can imagine. But his cooking, his food,
it's incredible.
It was beyond reproach.
Well, he was a visionary and a perfectionist.
Well, how do you do it? I mean, you write about these genius chefs. Really, you were the casting director of the restaurant industry, and you write about these. You write about these genius, but incredibly difficult chefs that didn't know how to manage money and dealing with them. At that insult to injury, and this hit home for me because running an agency, the worst thing that could happen in PR is when one of your staff takes off with your list, which happened to me. And then, tries to solicit clients. So I felt the pain that you did when you found out that David Boulay was planning to, rest in peace, to open literally down the street from you.
Well, I mean,
and then the same with Paul, across the river. But how do you work that in your head?
No, I mean, honestly, especially when I was younger, I thought I was beyond reproach. I'm like, I'm such a nice person. My parents are unbelievable. I take after them. I treat everyone with respect and dignity. It's like, and they all want to fly the coop. I mean, it's with Boulay. Boulay, it was really like putting your nose into it. Like he would sit in the dining room and friends of mine would be at the next table. And he's negotiating with some real estate jerk about opening this, that, or the other. And one time I just went in the kitchen. There was a guy named Ray Bradley, a wonderful person. And I grabbed him. I said, Ray, come here a second. I said, and I brought him out. The kitchen was sort of hidden around a corner. So I brought him out. I said, you see that? If anything ever happens here, that's the reason. Basically saying, he's negotiating in the dining room. And then, so I had to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. I couldn't wait for him to give notice.
Yeah.
And it would have been a cause celeb. And guess what happened? I don't know who could ever pull this thing off, but I hired a friend, not a 3-star chef to replace Boulay. I hired a friend.
Yeah.
And hired an entire kitchen staff. They trained at the River Cafe that Charlie Palmer let them train there. At one point, Charlie called me up. He said, hey, are you sure you want to do this? I said, why, Charlie? He said, well, this guy's not that good a cook. I said, Charlie, I know. I kind of know. But this is not about replacing a 3-star chef. Anyway, so on the day I let Boulay go, it was a Sunday. He's like, nah. He comes back down to Montrachet, and the entire new crew is now in the kitchen at Montrachet. And he couldn't believe his eyes that he saw all these new people. We opened the next day, Monday, and very good customer of mine, Penny Trank,
love her,
is walking towards the kitchen. So I see her and I walk over to her. I said, Penny, can I help you? She said, oh, I just want to tell David that tonight was the best meal we've ever had here. And this is the first night of Brian Whitmer's tenure. So I knew immediately that I was going to be okay. Okay. But it took me a number of years to understand, because I do have, perhaps a touch too much ego, hubris, whatever, to understand that it is a team effort, that every component works together. I never saw myself as the be all and end all. But when you have to replace the chef, you have to really know what you're talking about or know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like replacing a pilot for a plane.
Well, I don't know about that, but you have to replace it with a pilot, definitely.
But you can do that, and you had a lot of success. I mean, you went on from Montrachet to Corton, Bâtard, and back, just for the audience, you did all this starting. It's about 40 years ago when Tribeca was nothing, and now it's everything.
Right.
But the one thing, and I'm curious what you think about this now, is you couldn't deal with the critics. The critics were like the little things that came-in and hidden attacked you, and you were zinged. You had some great reviews, and you had the zing reviews. How do you bounce back from that? And what do you think about the way they're doing criticism now? Because now with the New York Times, it's like 2 critics, and one's here, one's there.
Right. Well, this is a very important part of my whole story, because when I was just an employee or a manager of a restaurant, one of the owners came over to me one day and he said, this is what I want. He shows me a 2-star review in the New York Times that Mimi Sheridan had given a restaurant. This is what I want. Now, why 2 stars? Because Mimi Sheridan, a 2-star from Mimi Sheridan was like a 3-star from anybody else. And she was so powerful in the 70s that I studied her scrupulously. I mean, to the point where I wouldn't even put a shrimp on a dish because every review said the shrimps tasted of iodine. And she was hellacious about a pepper mill. Back in those days, they had those baseball bat pepper mills, the ones that are
the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And they come over with the pepper mill and they go, would you like pepper on your salad? And you say, I haven't even tasted it. How do you know I need pepper or want pepper?
Right.
I haven't even tasted it. So I studied Mimi Sheridan, and the restaurant we opened was 24 Fifth Avenue with a woman chef by the name of Leslie Revson, who had a restaurant in a village called Restaurant Leslie, a very, very talented woman, very strong-minded, obviously. And Mimi Sheridan doesn't show up for like days. And then on a Saturday day, which was a sleepy time for the restaurant calls me up and says, she just walked in, Mimi Sheridan, because I had them trained to, I had a picture of her. So I literally lived across the street. Somehow I was in the village. I got to the restaurant, took her order. I didn't take her order, but the waiter took her order. Went in the kitchen, first course went out. And then for the entree, it was taking forever. She was trying to do what you're not supposed to do with a food critic. Just be natural. Put your best foot forward. But she was like, And when the review came out, believe it or not, and this was very instructive to me, we did get 2 stars from Mimi Sheridan. Very nice review. And she said the long delays between the courses seemed to be the problem of the kitchen because there was nobody eating there on the afternoon that I came. So she literally was intuitive enough to see that, because up to then it was like the service is bad, the waiters are terrible, the service was slow, because nobody ever blamed the kitchen, which is essentially where the service emanates from. You follow me? All the waiter does is carry a plate. If the waiter screws up, he maybe didn't take your order correctly, which happens, obviously. But anyway, so I studied the critics then, and if we have time for this, it's the best story. It's in the book. I went to work at La Grenouille, Le Régence with Daniel Boulud, La Reserve, Le Périgord, Georges Breguet. And one day they called me and they said, "Oh, you're not going to believe Brian Miller, the food critic of the New York Times, came in." And I go, "How did you know it was Brian Miller?" They said, "Well, we didn't, but he was joined by Pierre Frenet." And everyone knew Pierre Frenet, especially in French restaurant. So I said, "Well, what did he make the reservation under?" He said, "Benson." I said, "Okay, do me a favor. If you ever get Benson ever again, call me." So I bring my tuxedo. I'm building Montrachet now. Bring the tuxedo to the construction site. 3 weeks later, "Drew, we have Benson." I put on my tuxedo. E-Train is on the corner of Canal, comes up on 52nd Street, right where La Grenouille is. Walk in, they're like, "What the hell are you doing here?" There he is, the food critic of the New York Times, Benson. And then when he pays the check, I'm outside with a little camera. There were no cell phones. And then I followed him from 52nd Street to the New York Times 43rd Street, running up the stairs of St. Patrick's Cathedral, down the block, and I have 25 pictures of his back. I don't have one good picture. Now I open Montrachet, and I'm putting the wine away, and I'm taking deliveries, and I'm answering the phone. The phone rings. "Hi, we'd like to come 8 o'clock, 2 people." No, I'm sorry. I don't have 8 o'clock. I can take you 6, 6:15, 6:30. Okay, Benson. Could you hold on 1 second, please? We have a cancellation. Come at 8 o'clock. So I put my mother on one side of the table. I put my girlfriend, who's now my wife, on the other side of the table. And, my mother's going, "Oh my God, this restaurant is so attractive. And the food is so delicious. I've been here 12 times." And, so Benson, a.k.a. Brian Miller, gets up to have a smoke. And I go over to my girlfriend. I said, "What is he saying?" And she says, "It's the damnedest thing. They're speaking French." Because his wife, Anne de Ravel, French woman.
Yeah, Anne de Ravel, yeah.
Anyway, every time he made a reservation under Benson, Boulay and I get into the subway, take the subway to New York Times on the Thursday nights, because the paper would come out on Friday. Mm-hmm. They put out the paper around 10:30. We get the paper, and it's Montrachet, new, French, and downtown, 3 stars. 3.
That's great.
Amazing.
3. And guess what? I had a $16 menu. 1-6, 3 courses. I could have filled Shea Stadium. The phone never stopped ringing. So Georges Breguet, Le Périgord, he goes, "Drew," called me up. He said, "Drew, congratulations. Did you know it was him?" I said, "George, if you ever get Benson on your reservations, beware." So 2 years later, Le Périgord, 3 stars. I called George. And before I could finish, George says, "Drew, it was like you were whispering in my ear, Benson." So it's the food critic thing is kill or be killed.
Yeah.
It is an elaborate cat and mouse game. And let me tell you something. Frank Bruni, he was a master. He would make a reservation one day under Doug Charles. Then he would make it under Charles Doug. He would put fake phone numbers. I must have like 16 names for that guy.
Wow.
And we opened Corton because this was going to be the redemption, Paul Liebrandt redemption. And he doesn't come in for weeks. And it's late one night. It's like 9:30. And party comes in. I don't even look at the party. I bring them over to I knew where I was going to seat them. And I sit them down. And the next thing, Frank Bruni is literally in my face. It's his birthday, he says. And
he doesn't wear disguise? No disguise?
No disguise at all. And I turn around and my staff is like looking at me like, we know. Like they knew he was him. And we got three stars from Frank Bruni. And actually they made a movie called A Matter of Taste about Paul Liebrandt. Woman followed him for many, many years. Lovely woman from New Zealand. And then we got 2 Michelin stars. And here's a restaurant. And by the way, it won the James Beard Journalism Award, the movie. And this guy has to fly. This guy has to fly the coop.
I know.
So that's why I had to write a memoir to tell these stories.
Was there a restaurant that got away from you that you wish you had?
And there's a lot of things. Thomas Keller sent me a business plan for the French Laundry, which I thought was fakakta. It's like, what the hell? In the middle of no place, And I gave it to my business manager, who was also a little fakakta, but he was like, you got to, somebody's smoking crack here, So, I never talk about that, but I did pass on that. Todd English kind of hosed me. We both were doing restaurants with W. And one day, he came over to me and said, let's do a restaurant together. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And then I came back to New York and they called me and said, oh, it's a pity about Todd, right? I said, what's a pity? He says, well, he said he doesn't want to work with you. I go, that doesn't sound right. So anyway, I called him up. Oh, no, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. And then he opened, what was it called? His famous restaurant in Boston.
Olives?
Yeah, he opened Olives in the W.
Yeah.
Union Square, 1 star.
Yeah.
He was the king of one star. Then Rick Bayless and I had a little dance once, because Rick Bayless, for crying out loud. But that didn't come to pass. And then, I could point to a couple of things. In the book, I talk about Nobu's noodles. And Nobu didn't want to do Nobu's noodles. So Momofuku filled the gap. Let's put it that way. If we had done Nobu's noodles, maybe I would be flying private now.
Yeah, Nobu didn't want to do. He didn't want to do noodles. There was something negative about them. I think he said.
Yeah, he doesn't dig ramen. But guess what? And I predicted this. I didn't have to predict it, and it's not like the prediction means anything. When I had a French restaurant called Montrachet, quasi-French, I put pasta on the menu. And Jean-Louis Paladin came in one day. And Jean-Louis Paladin was the greatest chef on God's green earth. He was the master. And he was a wonderful, generous human being. And he ate that pasta and he goes, this is good. He spoke with that very French. This is good. And then I would put pasta. So I knew ramen would hit. Momofuku, to this day, that location is jammed.
Wow. Yeah. Jammed. Amazing.
Yeah. It's, so if we had done Nobu's noodles, but anyway.
Well, you did pretty good with burgers. I'd never been to the burger place at Madison Square, but you're selling a lot of burgers.
Oh, everything about that hamburger is the proof is in the pudding. Mm-hmm. That hamburger, there's a whole story there, but I had worked in McDonald's, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And that was what's the impetus for the Daily Burger. You came up with this the system.
I just tell you quickly that So they called me up and they said, we're spending $1 billion at Madison Square Garden. Would you like to do a concession? And I go, yeah, I'll do a chicken Parmesan sandwich. And they go, great. And then they called me back in 2 days and says, you got the hamburger. I go, whoa. This was 12 years ago. Shake Shack had just started. He was the king, right? And I go, no, I'm not doing the hamburger because the hamburger at Madison Square Garden sucked. I said, well, that's all that's left. If you don't do the hamburger, you don't get anything. You don't get anything. So I swear to God, I got off the phone. I said, well, I got the bun, I got the meat, I got the condiments, but I don't want to cook it on a flat top griddle. Like these stupid, insanely bad smash burger, bologna places that you read about and everybody, oh my God, the smash burger. It's like when you cook a piece of charcoal, it's like, so anyway, I find a conveyor belt, grills the burgers up and down, 18 burgers in 4 minutes, toast the buns on the bottom, perfect medium rare. We wrap it in a pleated paper that is genius. It holds in the heat, put it on a flat top. We'll sell I'm going to the Knicks tonight, actually, 2,000 hamburgers a game. 2,000. And they're delicious. And it's been 12 years. And guess what? They just signed us to a 7-year extension.
Wow,
so
that's great.
Why I say the proof's in the pudding. And by the way, we started with 1 concession in the building, then 2, then 3, then 4, then in the Madison Club, then in the Delta Club, then in the private suites. Why? By demand.
That's right. Look what Danny did. Look what Danny did with Shake Shack. You could be going that way,
I'm not going to talk against a billionaire.
Yeah. Melanie always says that Union Square Cafe made Danny famous and Shake Shack made him a billionaire.
You make your money and Bobby Flay's doing well. Bobby, it's all about the burgers. It's like the burger is where if you create the
let me tell you, I'm going to tell you something about Danny. Yesterday, I sent him a clip. I found this. I was going through old VCRs because I carved the turkey one day on Good Morning America. And Michael Strahan is a friend of mine through the football days, but I'm trying to get on Good Morning America. Good luck. So, he said, I'm trying for you, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, no, I carved the turkey on Good Morning America with Charlie Gibson and Joan London. So I find this tape where this is unbelievable. This is a guy interviewing Danny, Drew, and Serial Macchione. And it's kind of a short interview. And I'm going to send this to you after this interview because Danny Meyer looks like he's about 12 years old.
Well, he did.
And his hair is so curly, it's hilarious. And of course, when he's asked the question, he's Danny Meyer. So you know who it is. So I send this to Danny Meyer. And Danny was like, I cannot believe. I don't remember this. I don't know how you have this, but it's insane, And that's my life. I keep everything. My wife, she would have thrown everything out by now if I hadn't hid things, that's what I do. I send things to people. They're like, where the hell did you get, 30 years ago? And just, like I just had my book party here at Tribeca Grill. And, Marty, my partner of 35 years, Marty Shapiro, he goes, you have an engraved bottle downstairs. It's like an Ebuchadnezzar. It's like, I don't know, 8 bottles or whatever of Taittinger. I said, well, what does it say on it? It says, it was given to you at an event in the Hamptons in 1995. I said, oh, it's 30 years old? I said, yeah. Okay, let's open it. So at the book party, we go to open this thing, and I swear to God, my sommelier, who's a genius, David Gordon, he dorks the cork. So I'm like, oh, good luck. But then he gets the cork out, and it was delicious. It had bubbles. We served it to the whole group.
Wow.
So longevity in life, if we can live to be 70, both my parents died at a very early age. If you can live to be 70, God bless. That's my goal. I'm 70.
I think that's a great way to wrap this up. And with that, because you get very reflective at the end of the book, like we all have when we've had a rich, long career, and you worry about relevancy. You've achieved so much at this point. You can rest if you choose. But is there something you say to yourself every day? Or is there like one thing left you'd like to do just briefly to kind of wrap it all up? You did the memoir. I think you should be doing a museum based on what you just talked about with what you
Well, yeah. By the way, it would be called Drewseum.
Drewseum.
Believe it or not, I have content for that. But anyway, because I don't know if you probably went to Stars in San Francisco. Yeah. I was always like so enamored how he had that on your way to the toilets. You could see everything about Jeremiah Tower. It was like, so I kind of did that here at Tribeca Grill. Listen, I've had a storied career, but what you learn is that, and especially today, you could get a full page in the New York Times and nobody will see it. Or you can get a full page in the New York Times. You can put it on your Instagram and your followers will see it. And that's the only people who will see it. So what I would say is this, 40 restaurants with Nobu as the cherry on the top is tremendous. Would I do one more thing? Yeah, in collaboration with somebody who's got the money, because I was never good at raising money. And I would do a Jewish deli because years ago, Michel Richard did the Broadway deli in Santa Monica, and it was a stroke of genius.
Wow.
But for some reason, it didn't last. But the bread, rye bread specifically on deli sandwiches is god awful. So I'd have fresh baked bread, great corned beef and pastrami, obviously, and the mustard's really important also. I would have superior.
Well, if you open it, we're coming. Okay.
Yeah, we're coming. We love a good deli sandwich. Being a New Yorker myself.
Drew, it's been so great to see you looking good, by the way. Congratulations on maintaining your weight and glowing.
Melanie, you know how much respect I have for you and David. I wanted to do this. You made it very easy. Feel like we just started. This went very fast, but I love you guys. And you're an excuse for me to get back on a plane, go to New Orleans, and who knows, I might even break for dinner at Ambrose because I can get in.
Yeah, there you go.
Great.
Not that I want a poor boy that's this big.
Two more seats than we can join you.
Yeah, but they're nice people. You know, I went to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. What was it, 2 years ago? Was it 2 years? It was last year.
This year.
And I visited my friend Donald Link. Cochon was tremendous, and T and Lally over at Commander's Palace and had brunch there, and that was tremendous. So I love New Orleans. I'm on a diet, so I don't know what I can eat, but I even went to Antoine's because I've never been to Antoine's, and I had delicious luncheon at Antoine's before I got back on the plane. So I love New Orleans. That's an excuse to see my friends.
Come on down.
We will welcome you with open arms, and of course, we always love coming to New York. Again, the book is I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult. By the way, I finally reading this book knows what I knew your AOL address for yours was hose. I won't say the rest of it. Now I know why.
Well, everybody hoes me. That's why.
You know, I was thinking that too, because I used to email you at that address, and I was like, "What's the meaning of hose?" And now I finally figured out. After this conversation today, we figured it out.
That's it.
Hey, stay well. Okay.
Likewise, Mel. I love you, and David.
We love you too, Drew.
Thanks for having me on.
And give Tracy a hug too.
I shall indeed.
All right. You've been listening to the Connected Table Live. What a great conversation with old friends. I'm so happy. Pick up Drew's book. It's really a terrific read. Go out and support your local restaurants. It's a tough business to be in. We can't wait to go out anytime we can. Just do it. It's a great way to see friends, have an experience, and support a great community, because the restaurant industry is always there to support and give when there is a need. You've been listening to the Connected Table Live. Follow us on the Connected Table. You can see all our shows on over 65 podcast channels, and of course, the Connected Table TV on YouTube. And always stay insatiably curious. Thank you.